Eric, for you, it's clear that there is nothing to understand, nothing to know. With Jean Klein, he says that one must have a question. Otherwise, the Tomasic ego gets in the way. So is your not knowing the same as his having a question, one without an answer?
The question comes from the answer. It's because somebody has a kind of fulfilling of the answer, then the brain can articulate the question. If you do not have that, most people do not have this fulfilling, so they ask, shall I get a new wife, a new husband, a new car, a new house? They don't ask, who am I? So when this questioning strike, it's a sign that the revelation has already happened. And the revelation goes through the expressive way of somebody asking the question, but the question presupposes fulfilling the answer. So the answer is not after the question, the answer is before. So when somebody asks a question, actually very little is needed. Only that the questioner realizes that as long as he's going to ask the question outside, it will remain, I would say, dead. Then the questioning, the formulation of who am I disappears as such. And who am I become inner fire, which reveals itself at every moment of life. And in certain ways, the intensity of life, what we call tapas in Indian tradition, is this intensity. Some people have the intensity, I would say, at some moment. That means when the husband and wife are okay, when the child are in good health, and when they can pay their rent, sometimes they sit and they read the Upanishad, and then they ask themselves this question, and it's already beautiful. But the real questioning is not sometimes, it is constantly. That means the fire must come to such an extent that every moment of life, in waking state and dreaming state, is inhabited by the question, not in a verbal way, as somebody who said, who am I, which is nothing, but at the inner fire again. So this inner fire will consume all direction, all objective direction for an answer. And when all objective direction are burned, what will remain will be the answer. So the role of the question is to burn all objective direction. So it is not something personal, it's not something you do. It is something you inhabit by the grace of life. So the tamasic state is a kind of defense of this questioning, because the ego, the person, want to survive. And that's fair enough, because it's part of the process to discover the immensity of the egotism in us. The tamasic state gives us plenty of room to explore how much we defend ourselves. By defending ourselves, it means defending, but asserting and postponing and hoping and regretting and arranging and preparing and so on and so on. That means creating a past and future. So There's nothing wrong there. Tamas and Sattva and Rajas are not enemy. They're part of the same game. It is the law of the universe. It just appears to be different. But one must understand that the question comes from the answer, and the sadhana, in the traditional way, is simply to let this questioning come non-verbal. Nothing to think, nothing to understand, nothing to conceptualize, but to die moment to moment in all our direction, because all directions are objective, and what we are deeply is subjective. So we must understand the perspective, and then life take care of everything.
Eric, I have a question about Kapalabhati. I've been doing it regularly for about 25 years. And every once in a while, it becomes effortful. And that period can last for a few days to even up to a month where it's like not in rhythm. And I don't know what's behind that, whether it's something physical level, like some, dietary, or if it's energetic or more psychological. And I'm not sure what to do when that happens.
Well, when you come effortless, that it is done in the right way. When it is not effortless, that means there is some intention, there is some, and of course, it could be affected by what you eat, what you think, what you feel. But what is important is that sometimes it comes effortless, and then it should come more and more like that. And there's no need to make any effort. It's just a button to put, and 1 hour later you put the same button, it stops. There's nothing in between. So the fact it sometimes happens means it's going in the right direction, and it should come more and more like that. But not we cannot understand the why of something. It's why is a silly question, because the answer is always ridiculous, because we can never see the totality of the situation. So forget the word why, which is really a word of no meaning. But just explore. Yes, sometimes it flows naturally, sometimes there's less resistance. Sometimes you flow easily with life, sometimes you flow with resistance. Kapalabhati is not different from the rest of life. So just be open to the different expression, but it should come more and more effortless as the rest of life. And
Have
make
you
it a reflection.
experienced where your Kapalabhati becomes ragged or out of rhythm?
No, you shouldn't push. It will, of course, sometimes maybe in certain ways. Sometimes it's important to sleep in it. That's mean you go to a rhythm and then the rhythm produce some alpha and theta brain wave the brain, and then sometimes you fall asleep, and that's very important to follow. Then the rhythm may even stop. Actually, it doesn't stop. Very very seldom, and then it come back again. That's moment. This is different. That's a moment of deep meditation, and this we must accept it. It's will always remain more or less. But beside this, let go. I would say it's like in some position. It's a way body may fall asleep. It's deep sleep. It's not sleep, but it looks like that. That's something else. But the anarchist freedom, no, it's because there is an effort. You make no effort, and sometimes it doesn't come well, and you respect it. But don't push. Don't. You try once, 2 minutes, doesn't come, you stop. Do some other position. Try again. Don't try a third time. It's like when you want to seduce a man, a woman, or a dog. You propose once, propose twice, it's enough. You don't propose a third time, it will be a kind of vulgarity. So in life, we never propose 3 times. Propose twice something, the person responds, it's beautiful, it doesn't, it's beautiful too. But we don't ask 3 times. So for me, some position, like sometimes you want to do the shoulder, the headstand position, and you go, it doesn't work, you come back. Second time it doesn't work, it's enough. Maybe I'll do it in the evening, maybe, but I never tried 3 times. 3 times is too much. I mean, if I can listen once, twice, maybe an aggression for me to ask 3 times something to my body or to a girlfriend. So you ask twice, doesn't fit in, it's fine. There's other thing to do in life than capability, or standing on the head, or seducing somebody, same thing.
Thank you.
Eric, you mentioned that the moment of questioning without words, but just following that fire. So first of all, when it happens, it's always by surprise. Like I don't feel there's any control on it. And secondly, it is preceded by a lot of agitation from what I have observed. So a lot of agitation in the mind or just overall maybe it's the case of this body mind, but do you have any comments on this?
We're talking specifically about the inner questioning about who am I, not about any
Yes.
question.
Yes,
But,
the inner question of who am I?
So what is before is irrelevant. Agitation is a state of normal state of mind as long as somebody doesn't really integrate the perspective of life. So as long as you take yourself for a woman, for a man, or for a dog, there's going to be some agitation, and that's fine. There's nothing to do about it. It will reduce naturally when you see the perspective of life. That means that there's nothing to achieve, nothing to become, that you don't need to be loved, to be respected, to be listened to be acknowledged, and so on, which are the characteristics of the ego. So as long as perspective is not totally integrated, yes, there's going to be some agitation. So this you welcome because you have to be more and more intimate with your own functioning. And that's fine. On the contrary, it is beautiful because it gives you an indication that you haven't yet integrated the perspective, and that's it's not a critique. It's something you must openly accept. And it's nice when I see a problem in myself. It means, well, I don't see something clearly. That's why I think there's a problem. So it helped me to challenge myself of my way of looking at something. Because when you see something clearly, there is no agitation. And there's an example that Jean Klein used to give a lot, and I think, for example, he didn't invent it. Actually, he took it from Leibniz. Leibniz said that it will tell you. Leibniz was saying, visualize a very old Renaissance painting, a very big painting. In the Renaissance, they were making generally the scene or whatever. Like 6-7 meters long, 3 meters high, this huge painting you see in some church in Italy often. And then this we said, put a sheet on 90% of the painting, and you look 10% in the middle or on the side, whatever. Look at this 10%. And then when you look at this 10%, you're going to feel something is not good. Something is not complete, something maybe it's too dark, it's too light, it's not balanced. And there is a problem to solve. And you have this inner feeling, I want to, maybe we should put more clear, more dark, whatever. You keep looking at this 10%. And then you remove the sheet. And then in one moment you see this part, but you see the 90 other percent. And this very moment you realize that there is no problem to solve. Because now you see the painting in the whole, and when you see the painting in the whole, what seemed to be something to be corrected, what seemed to be a problem, disappear as such. Actually, there was never a problem to solve. So when we see something as a problem, it means that we don't see it. If I see something and I see it's a problem, that means I don't see it well. You cannot see your problem. If you see there's no problem. It's like if you put some light on a shade, if you see the shade, the light is not good enough. If the good light is no shade, that means the right seeing, there's no problem to see. So when I see a problem, it means I don't see. So agitation comes from thinking there's a problem to solve. This should be like that, this should be like that, and so on should be like that. So the perspective is to see the globality. And as long as globality is not integrated to a certain point, there will always be some agitation. So this you must accept it. We all function like that. But luckily for you, you have a moment where you have this inner fire, inner questioning. And then I will say stick to it. You have the grace of life of giving you this questioning. Is not everybody. Most people don't have that. Most people just asking themselves, should I sleep with this one or that one? Should I marry this one or that one? Should I change the house? Should I change my name? Should I do yoga? Or should I do Tai Chi? Or should I buy a new car? Most people live like that in the future. So you're lucky enough if you have this feeling sometime. Yes, it may not be all the time, but that's the way it is. It will always become in time. But time is a reflection of what is beyond time. So it's not a question of time, it's a question of intensity. More this feeling will come intense, more slowly you see it will bring into the right picture what seemed to be a problem. And when you realize there's no problem, there's no more agitation. Agitation comes always from thinking there's a problem to solve. God didn't make a mistake you have to solve in you nor in the world. So, but the global will be seen, and it cannot be seen intellectually, it can only be seen as a fulfilling. So in a certain way, it makes you humble because you cannot conceptually understand something, or you're living into the delusion. But there's nothing to understand. We have to surrender. You surrender to life. There's no understanding, but there is no more complexity neither. Understanding comes from fear. There's nothing we have to understand. We have to surrender to life. So that's the perspective will come naturally to you. So you have no effort to make. You have no sadhana to follow. You don't need to do yoga. You don't need to change your way of eating. You don't need to change your sexuality. You don't need to change anything in your life. But you need to acknowledge more and more the grace you receive by having some moment, this questioning. And this questioning will, by its very nature, expand within yourself, and this expansion will reduce thinking that there's something to change in your life or in the surrounding. And agitation will be seldom. It may happen sometime, of course. We all have some part in ourselves which are not clear, that's of course. But it will become very, very limited. And it will never be in the picture anymore. So, in a way, do nothing. Welcome life. Welcome this incredible chance you have to have this moment of this fulfilling. That will do the work for you. It's not in your hand. You're condemned to discover this openness. There's nothing you can do for it. There's nothing you can do against it. So again, it's all come to a kind of surrendering, which you cannot do because surrendering is what you are deeply. When you stop pretending to be a separate entity, you can do or not do. As long as you think you're a doer, surrendering is a concept. But more and more, with this questioning, you're going to see there is no doer. The doer is the thought. And by not pretending to be a doer anymore, surrendering will become the rules of your life. So just enjoy life, actually. Don't become spiritual, don't think too much about the thing. By all means, don't fall into the trap of the fantasy of non-duality and this ridiculous conceptualization. Don't be religious, don't be spiritual. Just explore life with no thinking, live in feeling, and you see everything will clear out by its very nature.
Eric, on a similar topic, do you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes. On a similar topic, I would like to hear your view about the difference between judging and discerning.
Discerning is a fantasy which we leave to non-dual yogis who live in the total subliminal world. Judging comes from the ego. Judging comes from the fantasy I know, but I don't know. Only God knows. So I must, surrender to this fact. How can I know something? What does it mean to know? I cannot know something. I can project something. I project my own stupidity. I project my own limitation on something which is immensity, because nothing is separate. And so when I said I know, it just it's very gross. It's very vulgar to know something. Of course, on a material level, you can have functional knowledge. You can know to drive a car, you can know to shoot a gun, you can know to build a house. I'm not talking about that. But to know something in a deeper sense means nothing. It just means a projection. So, but discerning, no, forget the fantasy of Vedantic swan who make difference between the milk and the water. It is nice, it's beautiful, we love India, but it has a sense in the highest level, but not in the way people understand it generally. So discerning viveka is not intellectual, it is an experience. So if you try to do it mentally, it is very conceptual. It's like we all read the description of Ramana Maharshi experience, who said he's lying on the floor and he said, my body is lying, but I'm not my body and my mind. And he see the functioning of his mind, and I'm not my mind, I am the self, and the awareness in which mind appears and disappears. When this happened to Ramana Maharshi, it was not a thought, it was experience. You can lie on your floor as long as you want and do that every day, 5 times a day. I promise you nothing will ever happen because it's not a process, it's not an intellectual process. So when you read Vedantic texts like the Drodrog Vilka, Vilka Kodamani, the Vedantic texts, we use discrimination, Viveka, as a tool. It must be understand that it's a tool who must be sustained by the presence of somebody free of himself. It is said in the text. And Jean Campbell always very clear like that. So the person cannot see. So the person who wants to see is a blind man looking. So discernment is not from the person. Discernment is from the person. When you realize that you become aware of the person, but it's very important to see that it's not the person who sees. Or to say it in a different way, you are I forget in English, you are in Français, the gibier. You are the hunter, you are not the hunter. But when most people think of discernment, viveka, they think they will see. No, you cannot see, you are seen. The ego is seen, the ego cannot see. So as a person, there's nothing you have to see. You have to see yourself. But it is not somebody seeing yourself. So seeing yourself is your own nature, but you're not seen personally. So viveka, to stimulate viveka in the traditional teaching is done only in presence of somebody like Ramana Maharshi or Maharaj, Krishna Menon, or whatever, somebody who lives this freedom. Otherwise, it is very conceptual. It's like somebody who said, who am I, who am I, who am I? It's word. So don't try to discriminate, but see how you function. And it is very light, because it's not something you have to do. It comes to you naturally. When you're jealous, you see it. You have no effort to make. When you're upset, you have no effort to make to see that. When you're in anger, you have no effort to make to feel the anger. When you're happy, you have no effort to make to see or to feel your happiness. So on and so on. So to see yourself is a practical door to viveka, to discrimination. But to try to discriminate from a personal point of view, it's very conceptual. It's just words. They are beautiful words. You can read Krishna Menon and you can recite Krishna Menon. Some people do that very well. But it is right for Krishna Menon to say that, and for his near students. When Raman Maharshi was seeing who am I as a kind of as Mavishara, as a kind of tool, yes, for a student with him, it was totally right. Maharaj was the same thing. I remember first week with Maharaj, you could feel this I amness in a very specific way. But that was belonging to his power, belonging to his ability. So yes, somebody like them can, in a certain way, facilitate you the openness to this inner power. But without that, it becomes worse. So don't fall in the trap of a spiritual teacher. What you must see is yourself. It's not discrimination. It's simply respect to life. You feel your body. You feel your emotion. You feel your thinking process. It is good enough. By that, you can realize that all these things happen in your openness. But don't try to be open. Don't try to feel this openness. Don't try to experience this openness. Don't try to be aware of this openness. Otherwise, it becomes purely conceptual. What you are is not an object of awareness. So discrimination is in a deep sense, is an expression of clarity. But clarity comes first. Discrimination is not a way to clarity, only if it is supported by some great human being, as I've said. But it is unlikely you're going to meet people like that nowadays. So if it did happen, no worry. But other way, you have an incredible field of exploration. It is yourself. So don't discriminate things, but see how you function. When you're upset, when you're happy, when you're unhappy, when you react, when you're jealous, you just become open to that with humility, without the fantasy to change yourself. Don't try to be sadvik, don't try to fight, don't try to be more clear, don't try to be spiritual, don't try. Stop trying anything. Trying is going away. What you are is the ultimate. It doesn't need any transformation to be what it is. When I want to be different, I reject the ultimate. What appears to me in the moment can never be anything else than the ultimate. Why am I not able to accept it? Because I have a fantasy. I should be like that. I should be without fear. I should be without desire. I should be free. I should be this. I should be that. This is fantasy. So no discrimination. Facing your functioning moment to moment with love, with affection, with intensity. You cannot be different than what you are in the moment. Stop having a fantasy that you could be different, that you should discriminate this, that you should understand that you should realize that. Leave that to storyteller. It means nothing. Your beauty, your totality is given to you moment to moment. Not tomorrow, not with discrimination, but in the very moment where you surrender to it. But yes, in the traditional texts, in Vedanta, and even in the Tantra in Kashmir, discrimination has a room to play. But it must be fed by the presence of somebody who is beyond mental discrimination. Then it has real value. Without that, it's a kind of fantasy.
Eric, but isn't the living in the feeling in a way that has to come from the same place of non-person? So basically, when we say that we are with the sensation, or we notice how we are when there's anger, when there's happiness, and so on, isn't this seeing be done in a way the same as discrimination, which is from the openness that we are not separate?
When you walk on a nail, you have no effort to feel the nail. When you raise an arm, you have no effort to feel the resistance of the air. When the arms come back, you have no effort to feel some prolongation in the body. When you go out and you feel the cold or you feel the heat, you have no effort to make. When somebody caress your hand, you have no effort to feel. So feeling is effortless. It doesn't come from discrimination. It just comes from the fact of life. Life is feeling. There's nothing else. Life is nothing else than feeling. Thinking is an expression of feeling. If you cannot feel, you cannot think. Because thinking comes from language. No language, you cannot think. Because we think with words. And there's no language without feeling. Language is always a description of feeling. So there's no difference. Thinking is a kind of prolongation of feeling. There's feeling, language, thinking. Thinking is a kind of degenerate feeling. But there is beauty because all expression in a certain way are rooted in the same origin. Feeling has more power, but thinking coming from language, language coming from feeling, in certain ways, language is expressed by somebody who lives this feeling. That means if you read a sermon of Mr. Eckhart, if you read the text of Abdelkader, if you read the Tantra of Abhinavagupta, as these texts have come from silence, which have been expressed as words, and these words have begin thoughts and then writing and expression, you can still feel the expression, but it comes from feeling. So body work is not to try to feel, do not try anything, but it's just to acknowledge the fact. When I said when your leg is laying on the floor, and I said feel the heat of the legs pervading the floor. We're not doing anything. If a stupid little mouse go under the floor, the mouse feel the heat. So I'm asking you just not to be more stupid than the mouse. The mouse feel your heat, don't do the same. So we're not creating anything. Just because our body has been built generally as a defense, because all our affective life, all our education, society, and make us that I defend myself, my arm, my legs, my mind, my face. I must survive. I must. Somebody touch me. I'm defending. So look at me. I'm reacting. So he said something. I'm reacting. So I've learned to survive. I've learned to assert. I've learned to defend myself. So yes, in this body which has been so trained to survive, it seems I need a little effort to feel the resistance of the air. Most people, if I move my arm fast, yet I can feel the air. If I move slow, I feel less. And some people, if I don't move, I don't feel anything. Why? I can still feel the pressure. They just need a little training because the structure of the body is so muscular, it's so tense that we stop feeling. But it's just something we just discover. So body work is just to stimulate in a certain way this non-muscular body feeling, non-asserting body feeling, not defending body feeling, non-surviving body feeling. So it is very natural. You don't see it as a technique. That's why body work has very little room to play, actually. If you are inclined for it, you do it. If you don't, you don't. It's not very important. Don't become obsessed with body work, as some people do. Shall I do Kapalabhati 1 hour, 2 hours? Shall I do this? What for? Why are people afraid of something? People who do yoga, people who are afraid. Like who do martial art. Why are you afraid? When you attack you, you see what's happened. It's not important. This is not my job. And people who do yoga are afraid. Why don't they keep quiet? Why to do yoga? It's ridiculous. Why to try to feel something? It makes no sense. But if one day you come to an old age and you can survive financially, and so you have time, and you are not gifted, you don't know to dance, you don't know to do music, you don't know to write poetry, you don't know to write. You really have no gift. You're really stupid. Then, when you live without daydreaming, sleep is short. You don't sleep 7-8 hours as depressed people. You sleep few hours. So you go to sleep before midnight because sleeping before midnight gives you higher energy. So you wake up 3-4 o'clock in the morning, 5 maybe if you're really old. And the nature of life is movement. The body is not well lying. So you get up. And what are you going to do at 4-5 in the morning? If you're old enough, you have no more lover, you have respect, your ecological mind, you don't want to put electricity, you pollute so expensive nowadays to pollute things. You don't read books because you realize there's nothing to read. You don't want to cut trees and to stimulate cutting trees anymore. So what do? If you are a poet, you write poetry. But if you have no gift, well, you sit and you raise one arm and you open the arm and you bend forward and you go backward and you inhale and you exhale. It's the art of the stupid. That's what we do because most of us are like that, have no gifts. But don't take it seriously. People who have gifts, they dance, they write, they do piano, they do violin, or we're happy for them. But you should realize, as I believe myself, that there are absolutely no gift in no way. Well, you assume your stupidity, you assume your incapacity of having any deepest expression, so you do yoga. But it brings nothing. It's a sign of your incapacity of being an artist. That's all. So don't take this thing too seriously. If you have time, why not? You're not going to watch TV in the morning or listen to radio, it's publicity. So yoga is a very good tool to pass time. A Kapalabhati, you do it 1 hour, 2 hours, pass time is beautiful. Time is the expression of what is timeless. So it is beautiful, but we doing nothing, and don't take it too seriously. Anyway, what is serious belongs to the ego. The serious seeker, the egotic seeker. Seriousness belongs to the ego. We give seriousness to the religious people. They are totally egotistic. Life is not serious. Happiness is not serious. Freedom is not serious. Seriousness belongs to the person, to the ego. Don't be a serious seeker. Don't be a serious yogi. All these things belong to the psychiatric hospital. Life is easy. Nothing serious. You do yoga, you do it. You should not even know you're doing it. If you don't do it, you should not even know you're not doing it. So life is too intense to think what we do. So nothing to think. So don't make anything of the yoga, of the perception, you're not doing it. It just imposes itself for some of us or not. And it's exactly the same thing. Serious people don't do yoga. Nanda Maharaj never done yoga. Maharaj never done yoga. Krishnamurti never done yoga. Ramdas never done yoga. Ramana Maharshi never done yoga. Abdel Kader never done yoga. Ibn Arabi never done yoga. Mr. Eckhart never done yoga. And I'm sure you know so many stupid people who do a lot of yoga. So don't fantasize yoga. Yoga is a poor thing. I have absolutely no interest. But people like some of us with no ability, so we explore life like that. But don't be serious. That's very important. Serious people are sick. Life is not serious, it is much more serious than that. Seriousness is a sign of the ego, a sign of I want something. I don't want anything. Life wants something from me. I must surrender to that. But it doesn't come from me. It comes from life itself. So it is just a question of surrendering, never of acting. There's no room for action in life. There's only room for surrendering.
Eric, earlier you were saying that life takes care of everything. And I guess it's because it presents us with situations that show me where I'm pretending to be someone or know something. And then it's in these noticing in these situations of where I'm not free that there's freedom. And then the way I see it in Advaitic framing is that freedom comes from seeing the eternity of what I am. So I know you don't consider yourself to be an Advaita teacher, but both approaches seem to imply an almost like cause and effect relationship. Like I see or notice something first, and then I realize my freedom. But somehow that contradicts an intuition of our inherent freedom. I seem to have gone astray somewhere in the thinking.
Careful not to try to understand what cannot be understood. Careful not to try to say, oh, it is like that. Because it is not like that. Whatever you may think is irrelevant. Careful not to think what is beyond thinking. Careful not to try to feel what is beyond feeling. Careful not to try to experience what is beyond experience. You must at some point surrender. Not surrender to think, but surrender your own inability. My inability is only space in which the four-feeling can really unravel. But as long as I try to see clearly, this is a kind of security. Intelligence is hindrance. Surrendering doesn't need intelligence. Intelligence may later on be a way to express what you have acknowledged in the surrendering. Then if you become Master Eckhart, or if you become Abdelkader, yes, your intelligence will express itself in your formulation. But intelligence will never bring you to understanding. So it seems you're still trying to see it. You're still trying to, as you want to see a red elephant. It is not something you can see. It's not something you can understand. It's not something you can conceptualize. It is not something you can think. To see the movement of trying to think, but you can only think the past, you can only think the memory. Memory will bring you to this complex state. Memory cannot take you out of it. Only the giving up of all you know leave you room to a kind of intuitiveness. So the moment you see in yourself this dynamism to you're looking there. It is not there. It is not where you look. It is in back of you. You're looking away. Whatever you look at, you're away. Whatever you understand, you're going away. It is not the object of your understanding. Your understanding is the object of your clarity. You see, at some moment, you see the dynamism to understand. So the dynamism to understand is seen, but you cannot understand. Understanding means projecting. Instead, I understand something, I mean, I've put it in my own level. If you follow the Samkhya, if you follow the Vaisheshika, if you follow the Tantra, if you follow the Vedanta, if you follow the Vajrayana Buddhism, you're going to understand this. It is not understanding, it is projecting your own point of view on something which can never be understood because there is no such a thing as something. Things are creation of the mind, there is no something. What is there is a totality, which can never be comprehended by a part. So you, in the moment, you only the surrendering, which is humility, to use the word of Eckhart, is a space of openness. The moment I see in myself this dynamism to look for something, I'm going away. It is not there. It is not in my thinking. It is in back of myself. And whatever I think, I go in front of myself. As we said before, you are the gibier, you are not the chasseur, you're not the hunter, you're the hunted. You are seen, but you cannot see. Sometimes when you ask a question, it feels you still think you can see. No. What you see is irrelevant. What you see is a projection. You see only the past. You are seen. The ego is seen. The ego don't see. The personality is seen. Personality don't see. Don't try to understand that neither. Otherwise, again, doing the same thing. So you must come to this kind of inner loafing that we're constantly trying to comprehend. What can we comprehend? To stay in back of understanding, stop before understanding. It's beautiful, it's really an art of life. To stop before understanding in any situation, actually. Not only when we talk about truth, whatever it means, but even in a relationship. Can I stop before understanding? Like I'm asking myself, am I with this person or not? I love this person or not? Or is my relation a shadow? I stop before knowing. And then there's something extraordinary there. Like if I see something and I have this movement in myself, do I like it, do I don't like it? I shudder. What is before I like, before I don't like? Before proximity, before furtherness. I stop before thinking. It's beautiful. In any situation. Yes or no, I stop before that. It's an art of not concluding. Not concluding. Jean-Claude was formulating that, never to conclude it. But the ego always wants to conclude, is this or that? Am I right or am I wrong? There's no such a thing. Things are not right or wrong, they are what they are. So right and wrong is a projection, is going away from myself. So you have a great mind, you know a lot of things, but stop before using it. Sometimes you let your knowledge move because it's part of life. Why not? But don't fill it with your with hope, with direction, with intensity. And then your thinking, your intelligence, your knowledge will slowly reduce, and then you see the sun rising or the moon, and you see a dynamism to say something, to think something, and that dynamism sort of fall down in the heart, and you stay with no thinking, no, not beautiful, it is nothing to think. It is what it is. Then with the thinking is the same thing. Thinking is like a moon, like a sun. So yeah, I see the movement and it come down. And Jean-Claude was describing it in a different way. He was using the fourth step of VAC of the word in Kashmir Sheva. And it said sometimes you're in meditation and you feel the stillness and the kind of impulsion, like a sparkle of energy rising up. And you were seeing this two ways. Sometimes you feel this energy rising up and so you go with it and this energy strikes the brain and the brain makes a thought. And eventually the thought becomes language, words. But he said sometimes you're really in the stillness of meditation, you feel the sparkle of energy rising up to the level of the heart, and then if you really do nothing, it's sort of come back to its origin, and it doesn't strike the brain, doesn't come certain words and so on. So that's what we're seeing in different way. So the Kashmir way is pure stillness, is para, and then Pasyanti, the right one, is the first expression of light, and then Madhyama, it's a level of equilibrium, and then it becomes Bekari, becomes the articulation of the brain. So Jean will always said to remain naturally in this para state, which is global state, where the energy eventually sparkle and it reduces itself naturally. It is what we say in different way. So don't let the thinking take you away of nothingness. Thinking can never bring clarity.
Eric, dans moi, j'ai remarqué que la pensée, l'agitation ou la pensée, c'est comme une réaction à une peur. Chaque fois qu'il y a une sensation ou une expérience très forte de pas être la personne, mon mental, la pensée, ça commence à vouloir intervenir et donc le mécanisme de la pensée, ça recommence.
I think you should say it in English for our English friends.
Sorry. So I remarked that the thought is more a reaction to fear. In the moments, or in some moments where I feel somehow the person disappearing or dissolving or being less there, the thought is immediately grasping and immediately becoming very mechanic.
So you have seen the fact. Thinking comes from fear. When you're when you walk in the forest and you see the bird and you see the flower and the trees and the rocks and so on, and then there is a noise, and eventually the noise creates fear because maybe it's a wolf, maybe the bear, whatever, and then you begin to think. So yes, thinking comes from fear. If you have no fear, there's nothing to think. It's feeling. So you discover that it's beautiful. It will come more and more that the thinking movement is a reaction to survive. That means you come back to yourself and you want to find a security, but there's no security in life. So the thinking for security is going away of security in a certain way. And actually, sooner or later, you discover that only living with the fact, with the feeling, give you the ability to function in a situation, not the thinking. Thinking delude you. If somebody attacked you in the street, it's not the time to think, but to feel. In the feeling, eventually you're going to discover what is functional according to your own ability, according to the situation, and so on and so on. But thinking can only make you repeat the past, and the past is always irrelevant to face the present, because there's maybe analogy, but there's no repetition. So, yes, you're right, thinking comes from fear. And fear comes from thinking. Because fear comes from the idea I am somebody. And actually, fear and thinking are the same thing. Because it's a thing is fear and fear is thinking. When you think, it always brings you back to fear because you think from a personal point of view. From a personal point of view, you're in danger. You're going to fear the war, you're going to feel old age, you're going to fear death, you're going to fear everything. So whatever we think comes from fear. And all the activity we decide to undertake, whether you do you walk in the desert, whether you go to India, whether you learn Sanskrit, whether you do yoga, whether you marry somebody, whether you don't sleep with anybody, whether you eat more, you eat less, whether you do that or that, come from fear. With the fantasy, maybe if I do that or if I don't do that, I'm going to survive better. Maybe if I become Buddhist, if I meditate more, if I do yoga, if I go to China, if I, we all have fantasies. It's beautiful. If I become a fireman. So fear is thinking is fear. Sometimes our mind will make distinction. But it's beautiful to see that. Just make no conclusion. You see that in yourself. And it must remain a fresh evidence, not something you know. What you know is finished, is gone. So next moment you're going to see that, it will be the first time. You must have this freshness of every time you see something, even if it is 1,000 times you see it, you're always feeling fresh. Otherwise, it can never free itself. Like when I move my arm, it's always the first time. I may do that for the last 50 years every day. No, it is the first time. But what I feel now, it is nothing to do with any other feeling. The structure of my arms, the energy of my arms, pressure of the space, whatever, it's always new. It may look like what I've done yesterday, but no, actually it is very new. And I must discover this uniqueness of the feeling and of the thoughts. So when a fear comes in me, I'm not saying, oh, yes, I know this fear. No, shut up. It is the first time. It may look like, but no, it is the first time. It is very important to come to the freshness that whatever we feel and experience is over the first time. Never come to the psychological thing or it's a repetition, it's always the same fear, it's my old fear, I was traumatized. He said, shut up. It is psychological thing. I'm not saying it is wrong. Maybe there's some value in some psychological exploration, but that's not what we do here. We don't do psychology. Psychology is for sad people who want to remain sad. So here we are happy. So no psychology. So when somebody comes, it is the first time. If I caress the shoulder of somebody, it is the first time. I don't care I caress this shoulder every day. That's 30 years. If I caress a cat, it is the first time. I don't care the cat is 20 years old. It may be the first time. We have the same intensity. It's a discovery. So when you see yourself, when you see thinking come from fear, don't make it as something you know. There's nothing to know. Forget about it. You don't know anymore that. Maybe the next moment you're going to see that. You're going to see thinking like concluding, oh, maybe with this talk we had tonight, you're going to have this kind of fantasy to conclude. So what did we say? So what about it? Shut up. Nothing about it. Nothing to conclude. We said nothing. It had no meaning. Can I respect this intimate moment we had tonight without putting any comment on it? Nothing to like, nothing to dislike, nothing to agree, nothing to disagree, nothing. Like when you go out to a concert, shut up, let it die. Then the vibration will remain, but not the memory. After a concert, you still hear the rhythm, you didn't listen well. When the concert finished, the sound finished, but the vibration remained. Now you make love with somebody, you finish, but the vibration remains, not the memory. If you memorize, you live in the past. No, we live in the present. So forget what you understand, forget what you discover, whatever intensity it has, make it new every time. No conclusion, don't do nothing about it, don't think about it. And it will come more and more intensely. And you see a moment when it becomes so intense that you don't know what you do. You see something, but you don't know what you see. You see you seeing, but you don't know what you see. You know you're knowing, but you don't know what you know. You understand, but you don't know what you understand. It's a kind of disobjectivation of situation. That's the heart of the tradition. And I forget all about that. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.